The Bastard Pac is one of AEW's best and most protected characters ever since he made his debut in the company back in 2019. Over the past 5 years, Pac has separated himself as one of AEW's true bad guys. No matter what happens, no matter what storyline he's involved in, no matter how kooky or wacky the people around him are, the Bastard Pac has been able to maintain a sense of realism, seriousness, and overall badassery that not many in the professional wrestling business have been able to keep. In a time where pro wrestling is as open a secret as there's ever been, in a time where you have people going out there on TV shows, making goofy appearances on Jimmy Fallon and other night shows, it's interesting to see a character like Pac maintain this level of kayfabe and seriousness on television to the point where many people believe that Pac does not exist without his gear. And that is one of the first ways that AEW has been able to maintain this sense of seriousness. Over the past couple of years, Pac has never been seen outside of his gear. While his teammates and others may be wearing suits, maybe wearing sweats, maybe wearing whatever, he only shows up on TV, whether it's in the ring or backstage, in his gear. And again, it's a running meme at this point that Pac does not exist without his gear. However, in many ways, it adds to this character, because the character Pac is not someone who is there to be around the boys. He's not there to hang out backstage. He is there to do a job. And that job involves being one of the best in-ring performers in the world. That job involves showing up professionally, wrestling, and then leaving. That is what he has always done in his time in AEW, and that is what the character is expected to do. To the point where when the day comes that Pac shows up somewhere without his gear or ends up wearing shorts or sweats, it is going to be a massive deal, especially to the fans who have been paying attention over the last couple of years. But to a more serious note, the main reason that Pac has been able to maintain this level of protection and seriousness is because of the way he presents himself. Not only in the way he dresses, but his attitude towards what he's doing in that moment. Whether he was with the Lucha Bros, the Blackpool Combat Club, or by himself, this has given him an aura that not many have in professional wrestling. And while you can't necessarily compare him directly to the likes of Kane and The Undertaker, in the way and the principle in which he has been protected is very similar. Because until Kane started doing the goofy stuff with X-Pac and RVD, that character always had a sense of realism that was like no other. There was no one else on the entire roster who was more believable than Kane in 2000. And I believe the same is true for Pac. With Jon Moxley at this point notwithstanding, I think at this point, Pac is the most believable character on the entire AEW roster. No one even touches him. Whether you have someone like an Orange Cassidy who is doing the whole lazy shtick, or someone like Kenny Omega who's known for being corny, Pac is himself. You don't know what the man behind the character is really thinking because he hasn't allowed that person to come out. What you see is what you get. And in many ways, those are the best characters and the most compelling characters because they blur that line between reality and fiction. And at this point in a time where professional wrestling is as open a secret as it's ever been, that blurring of reality and fiction is one of the most important things you can do in order to come across as a threat on television and come across to the fans as an engaging character. And he's not going to be the person who cuts the 20-minute promos that everyone's talking about. He's not going to be the person who goes out there and makes you laugh, makes you cry, but he is the person who is going to be able, through just a look in his eyes, be able to tell you that doom is coming. He is someone who is going to be able to tell you that whether he wins or he loses, he is going to take a part of his opponent with him at the end of the match. He is someone who tells you with just a look and a scowl that he is not to be messed with. And I think part of it kind of goes back to the roots of his WWE character, because if you go back in WWE, when he was brought up to the main roster as Adrian Neville, there was a lot of hype coming into that moment because everyone saw the awesome NXT champion that was Neville in NXT coming up to the main roster, and they thought they were going to get the same guy, and we didn't get that. Instead, we got Vince McMahon's pet project in Mighty Mouse brought to professional wrestling, as he became a short superhero that no one really took seriously because it was a goofy gimmick. And it was a lot of Vince McMahon's doing because he never saw Pac as a serious threat as a wrestler. He thought he was too short. He thought he looked ugly. And in AEW over the past 5 years, Pac has been able to turn that around on its head, and in just a short amount of time become one of the most serious, protected, and compelling, realistic characters there is in the entire world. And whether or not you think that Pac is indeed one of the most compelling characters, the truth of the matter is we can't deny this fact. What you see with him is what you get. And whether or not you think that Pac is indeed the most compelling character or is someone who you find a relatability with, the fact remains that there is no one who has the mystique to the level of Pac on the entire AEW roster. Because at the end of the day, even when he loses, this man is still as over as he was before. And he is someone who you can propel into the main event picture at any point, and he is always going to be taken seriously, no matter the loss, no matter the ability of the other person, and no matter the stakes. He is someone who's always going to be ready and always going to be prone for that spot. And a big part of it is because of the way he has been presented. That mystique has helped him up until this point, and I think it's going to help him. And with his insertion into the Blackpool Combat Club Death Rider storyline this past year, I also believe that Pac, once he comes out of this story, is going to be as hot as he's ever been, as over as he's ever been, and as important as he's ever been, which could help catapult him back into the main event picture. And while all of that is to be determined, one thing's for sure, and that is that Pac is special.